What if I told you that the Romans had a form of torture so brutal that most didn't survive it? Imagine being tied to a post, your skin exposed, and a Roman soldier preparing to strike with a Roman flagrum, a brutal whip designed to tear into the flesh. The crowd, gathered to mock, gasped, not in horror, but in disbelief at the sheer brutality. Why did the Romans employ such a horrific form of punishment? And what does this dark chapter reveal of the suffering of Jesus? Today, let's uncover the shocking truth about the Roman scourging. Here's a quick warning. Today's video may be sensitive for some. However, every bit of it is based on historic facts and the reality of what Jesus endured during his suffering. The setting is Jerusalem, controlled by the Roman Empire in 33 AD. And life under the Roman rule was incredibly harsh. Here are a few of the highlights of how brutal it was to live under Roman rule. When it came to crucifixion, Rome didn't just use it as a punishment, it was a tool of terror. After Spartacus's revolt in 71 BC, 6,000 slaves were crucified along the Appian Way. Imagine the scale of that. The chilling message it sent to all who dared defy Rome. Any challenge to Rome's authority, even small uprisings, was met with overwhelming force and bloodshed. This was the reality of living under Roman rule. And so it's no surprise that something as brutal as the Roman scourging was routine in this time. Also known as flagellation, it's important to look at the tool used for the punishments. Flagrum or flagellum. This was a multi-thronged whip made of leather straps and was typically short to medium length, not like those used in horse-drawn carriages. The length and design could vary somewhat based on specific context and the region, but the general characteristics were consistent. And it looks something like this, although a whole lot more brutal and vicious. Unlike ordinary whips, the flagrum was specifically designed to inflict maximum pain and suffering. Each of the tails of the whip was embedded with material that increased the brutality of the punishment. Some of the tails had lead balls attached, which caused deep bruising and internal damage. Others were tipped with sharp bones or metal shards designed to tear through the skin and expose muscle. And in some cases, glass fragments were attached, slashing through the skin. And there were hooks, nicknamed scorpions, which could catch in the flesh, making the wounds even worse as they were ripped out. Think about this for a second. If just one of these lashes could rip through the skin, what would dozens do? While I don't want to focus on the graphic nature of this, you can imagine the extent of the damage caused by it. Now that we've covered the weapon that was used, let's take a look at the process of what happened. The Roman soldiers were highly trained in this brutal form of punishment, and the way that they carried out the scourging, well, it was just as calculated as the instrument that they wielded. All scourgings were done in public, usually in courtyards, public squares, near the execution site, or even in the city gates. The purpose was to humiliate the condemned and send a clear message to everyone else. By making the punishment public, the Romans ensured that those who saw this spectacle, it would serve as a wider warning to the population. Now, imagine standing in the crowd, forced to watch this happen, or worse, waiting your turn. Because sometimes those condemned to scourging had to witness the punishment being carried out on others before it was their turn. The Romans weren't just masters of physical pain, but also psychological torture. This display of cruelty was meant to break the spirit before the body. When the condemned were brought to the public site, they were typically tied to a short post with their arms stretched out above their heads, leaving their backs, their sides, their legs exposed. They were stripped naked, often to further add to the humiliation and to complete the vulnerability before the crowds. The first lashings of the whip could bruise the body, but following blows were far worse. Each with the strike of the flagrum tore into the flesh, often shredding the skin and exposing underlying muscle, ribs, organs, sometimes even the spine. In fact, many victims did not even survive the scourging itself, and died from their wounds without even needing to go to their final execution method. Some died from blood loss, shock, or internal damage caused by the lashes. Though not all scourgings led to death, it was often a fatal punishment, especially in cases of extreme brutality. And here's another cringy historical fact. The soldiers sometimes would pause so that the punishment would be prolonged. Again, psychological torture. And if someone might pass out during this, they'd just wait until they regain consciousness and start all over. The Romans were not only focused on the physical damage, but also used these brutal punishments to control the population through fear. The public nature of these events was meant to send a clear message about the consequences of defying the Roman authorities. Hey, let me take a minute. If you're enjoying this, why not subscribe? Click the notification button to never miss out on any more great content like this, including more in this series. And if you have a question or disagree with what I'm saying, why don't you drop a comment? And if you like the video, click the like button. Let's get back to it. Now, some people think Jesus only received 39 lashes, but that's not what happened. That's just a myth, but here's the reason behind the myth. Now, it's important to note that there was a significant difference between the Roman method of scourging and the Jewish practice of whipping, which we see mentioned in the scriptures. In Deuteronomy 25:3, we find a specific law regarding the punishment of whipping. 40 stripes may be given him, but not more, lest it should be exceed and beat him with many stripes. Above these, thy brother should seem vile unto thee. This law sets a maximum of 40 lashes, a number that many scholars believe reflects the Jewish practice of administering lashes, which was often carried out in a much more regulated, controlled, and even loving manner compared to the brutal practice of Roman scourging. In Jewish practice, the number of lashes given was carefully regulated to avoid exceeding the maximum prescribed by the law. To ensure the count didn't go over 40 lashes accidentally, only 39 lashes were typically administered. This practice meant as a form of discipline not to bring death, and the individual that was receiving the lashes was still considered a brother within the community, with the goal of bringing correction, not punishment for punishment's sake. In stark contrast, Roman scourging was far more brutal and violent. There was no set number of lashes, and the severity of the punishment often depended on the discretion of the soldier carrying it out or the orders given by the governor. The focus of Roman scourging wasn't to give discipline. It was designed for maximum physical agony, humiliation, and fear. Where Jewish whippings had a purpose of correcting and maintaining a sense of brotherhood, Roman scourgings was an instrument of power and domination. The scourging was also intended to weaken the victims before crucifixion or what other punishment waited for them, ensuring a quick death. And not all criminals were scourged before crucifixion, just those that Rome wanted to suffer. Remember, Pilate was just initially going to scourge Jesus and let him go, but the crowd demanded that he be crucified as well. This brutal treatment was not only a part of Jesus' suffering, but also fulfillment of ancient prophecies that foretold the specific details of his pain and humiliation. Isaiah 52:14 declares, his visage was marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. Isaiah 56 foretells, I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who plucked out the beard. I did not hide my face from shame and spitting. And Psalms 129:3 vividly describes the plowers plowed on my back, and they made their furrows long. Isaiah 53:5 then reminds us of the purpose behind this suffering. By his stripes we are healed. Considering the extent of his scourging, it's no surprise that Jesus was physically unable to carry the crossbeam all the way to Golgotha, requiring Simon of Cyrene to help bear the weight. Yet, despite everything, he still pressed forward. The fact that he even made it to Golgotha in such a condition speaks volumes, not just about his endurance, but about his unwavering determination to fulfill his mission. Everything Jesus endured, the scourging, the humiliation, the unbearable pain, was not just a random act of brutality. It was the fulfillment of prophecy, the price of redemption, and the ultimate demonstration of his love. And yet, this was only the beginning. The suffering didn't end at the scourging. There was still the cross. There was still the full weight of our sin that he would bear. If you haven't seen the earlier videos in this series, be sure to check them out. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I will see you next time. And remember, stay with the Word and the Spirit.